Even members of the LGBT community do not want DEI forced into video games. Let's see what's going on. There are three main examples I'm going to be referencing in this video. There's Concord, Suicide Squad Killed the Justice League, and Dragon Age The Veilguard. So I think first it's important to ask a question: what makes a game good? Is it things like this DEI, like identity politics, social and political issues, things like that? I don't think so. I think it's very plain and simple. You ask any gamer, even gamers in the LGBT community, because what do we want out of a game? We want a game to be fun. Plain and simple. So these things that we're adding in and we're making the focus in these games, they're not making the games fun. It's got to have good gameplay, a good story, maybe music and art style, but all those things make a game fun. They make up a game that any gamer in any community would want to play. By now, I'm sure we've all heard about the disaster that is Concord and some of the DEI issues that game had. Every character had to have pronouns listed or some ambiguous listing such as undecided. Then we look at their actual character models and it's not much better. Whether the models are made to look overweight or nerdy or part of the Black community or Asian community, any of these minorities, it was all about that. It was all about the DEI with these character models, with making stereotypes and not really making fun and interesting characters. And this, of course, is just besides the boring gameplay that Concord had to offer. Overwatch did pretty much everything Concord did when it first launched, and that was years ago. You take a look at Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, and it's right there in the name. The most inclusive way to be is to let the bad guys get their time in the limelight. They actually kill the Justice League. That's, spoiler alert, they do it in the game. But it's done in the most unsatisfying and unfun way possible. And then we go look at our most recent example, Dragon Age The Veilguard. And we have all seen those clips too, I'm sure.
So, I'm non-binary.
What does that mean?
I had big fingers. It means I don't feel like a man or a woman.
If you are neither a man nor a woman, then what are you?
I'm a dragon slayer. Non-binary. I just said, and I'm going to use they instead of she from now on.
From the absolutely shallow and abhorrent writing that is so awkward and hard to get through, to the gender pronouns again being shoved in our face, all on top of mediocre and boring action gameplay. So people play video games for a number of reasons: for entertainment, for competition, and for escapism. Escapism. I think that's a very important word here. Just searching the word escapism in Google, escapism, the tendency to seek distraction and relief from unpleasant realities, especially by seeking entertainment or engaging in fantasy. So, we add in these DEI elements into our escapism. We're not escaping from anything. This is no longer a different reality. We're bringing elements of our reality into this other reality. So it's really no longer any different. It's not fantasy anymore. Especially with games like Dragon Age The Veilguard, where it's supposed to be in this dark fantasy world. Pronouns and this identity politics do not really belong at all. And especially in the way that it's ham-fisted, just forced down our throats. So how are these games received? How did users actually score these games? Well, let's take a look at the Metacritic user scores, because we don't want to look at the critic scores. The critics are very biased, and they've proven themselves to be that way. It's more important to see how the users actually feel about these games, because the users are the ones buying, the users are the ones playing in mass, and actually making these games a success or a failure. So I'm going to be taking all of these platform user scores on Metacritic and averaging them together so you have one score. So for Concord, the user score on PlayStation 5 is 1.7. The user score on PC is 0.5, which comes to an average of 1.1 out of 10. Then we move on to Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. For PlayStation 5, the user score is 3.4. For Xbox Series X, the user score is 4.9. And for PC, the user score is 1.7. These average out to a score of 3.3. And lastly, Dragon Age The Veilguard. On PlayStation 5, the user score is 3.8. On Xbox Series X, the user score is 4.0. And on PC, the user score is 2.4. These average together for a score of 3.4 overall. So yes, I've made my point that the games include DEI elements and that the users have reviewed these games very poorly. But how exactly can I say that the LGBT community does not like these games? Well, let's go into the details of that. So I made this little document here. LGBT gamers don't want DEI. And we're gonna go through this. We're gonna see exactly what's going on here. So the entire US population, approximately 334,900,000 people. The percent of US population playing video games is approximately 61%. Percent of gamers identifying as LGBT is approximately 17%. So we take the US population, we multiply that by the percent of US population that plays games, that's 210 million here. We multiply the 210 million by the percent identifying as LGBT, and we get 35,766,130 LGBT gamers in the US. And now the fun part. So Concord estimated units sold is 77,100. And so this is taking the Steam estimated units sold and extrapolating on that, just multiplying by 3 essentially for the most generous number. I'm taking the top end estimation of Steam units and multiplying by 3 for the most generous number on units sold across all platforms. So genre is action. So we go and look at percent of gamers that like action games. That's 90.3%, okay? So we take our LGBT gamers number and we take 90% out of that. That's 32,296,815. So that's essentially how many LGBT action gamers we have. Now we subtract the units sold, or essentially how many people might have bought this game from the LGBT community. And that leaves 32,219,715 LGBT gamers that did not want this game. And the game lost approximately $400 million. Then we go look at Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. Estimated units sold, 913,200. Same genre, action. So we have the same percentage here for action gamers, 90.3%. And so then down here, we take our LGBT action gamers estimate. We subtract how many possibly LGBT gamers might have purchased this game. If it was all LGBT gamers supporting this game, 913,200, we are left with 31,383,615 LGBT gamers who did not want this game. And the game lost approximately $200 million. So far, it's still live, but it has absolutely abhorrent numbers. And last but not least, we have Dragon Age the Veilguard. So Dragon Age estimated units sold is 1,813,200. Its genre is RPG, and so the percentage of gamers that like RPG games is approximately 65.8%. So we take our LGBT gamers number, we multiply that by the approximate number that likes RPGs, we get 23,534,113. So that is our estimated RPG gamers number out of the LGBT community. We take that overall number and we subtract the units sold, and we're left with 21,720,913 LGBT gamers who did not want this game. And so we go to the top here, we go back to Concord. You could argue with Concord, it was a new IP, they didn't know what they were doing or if they had a foothold or whatever the case, and that's why the game didn't do well. Sure, maybe, you could argue that. Then you go down to Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. Oh, DC, it's not as popular as Marvel and superhero stuff. Maybe it's a little more niche than just a general, action RPG like Dragon Age the Veilguard that has an established IP, that has a big player base. Lots more people like action RPGs than, this type of looter shooter that Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League was. So maybe it makes sense that Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League did so poorly. Sure, you could argue that too. Then you get to Dragon Age the Veilguard. Like I said, established IP, action RPG, very well-liked category, right? RPGs, they're super popular. Even that game lost $180 million, and the not even close to a majority of the LGBT gamer community wanted anything to do with this game. And we can talk all day about feelings, about how these things in these games make us feel, it makes me feel sick, or, I don't like it, or, hey, I love it, I love these elements, whatever, on whatever side you are. The numbers don't lie. The numbers are right there, and they don't lie. Now, again, these are estimations, of course. Yes, these are estimations. But these are a lot more accurate estimations than just saying, oh, the LGBT community wants more LGBT representation in video games. They want more DEI stuff in video games. Because we see these numbers, and that is not the case at all. The escapism is not there with this DEI crap. the way it's being implemented. And that's a key component here. It is the way that it's being implemented, because it can be done well. I've made this point in a previous video. Baldur's Gate 3 does it fantastically. The body types in the character select, right? You have a choice of body types instead of them being male or female. You can mix and match genitalia. You can sleep with a bear. You can do almost anything you can think of. You can blow everybody up in the whole game if you want to. It gives you so much choice, but it is absolutely a great game at its core. And the DEI stuff they choose to include is sprinkled on top as just like seasoning to an already exquisite steak, you know, something like that. So we have looked at the DEI elements that are actually in these games. We have looked at escapism, kind of what it means, and the lack thereof in these games, you know, these DEI elements kind of ruining the fantasy and pulling people out of the escapism. And we have talked about the user scores for these games and how abysmally bad they are. And we've talked about the numbers, the actual approximated, estimated numbers of the LGBT community who actually appreciate these games, and how very small the number is. Because you think about the number of the LGBT community out of the United States population at large, it's very small. And then the number of the LGBT community that's actually gamers, even smaller, right? It's crazy. It's crazy how little that community cares about these games. By the numbers, by how many people actually purchase them. I mean, maybe there's more people who appreciate it that these things are being put in, even though they're not gamers. Maybe there's more in that regard. But in terms of games, like, the thing that matters for a game to be successful is the sales. So the sales numbers matter. And these numbers are small. And again, these are estimations of what could be, you know, the LGBT community making purchases and supporting these games. It's very small, like less than 10%. Less than 10% of the LGBT community is supporting these games and buying them. What? Oh man, really bad. So let this be a lesson to developers. Why are you marketing this to the LGBT community? Why are you saying that more DEI needs to be represented in video games if you're going to do it in this heavy-handed manner that nobody obviously wants? Not even the LGBT community themselves want? Why? Why do this? I hope that this is a wake-up call for all developers, right? These numbers, even especially from Dragon Age the Veilguard, right? Still pulling in, you know, tens of thousands of players concurrently. Those are good numbers for an indie developer of like 1 to 3 people that expected nothing and got, you know, a few $1 million, right? That is big numbers for that size of a studio. But for BioWare, for these big companies, right? This is so bad. You're marketing to such a small niche within a minority because it's obvious, right? If the LGBT community actually wanted these types of games in this format, in this intensity of the DEI, they would be buying it. They would be buying it by the bucket load, right? And that is not happening. So I really hope this is a wake-up call. This is not what gamers want. This is not what the LGBT community wants, apparently. And I hope devs change their ways. Make good games. Make good games at the core. Baldur's Gate 3, such a fantastic game, and it has some of these DEI elements. But the game at the core is incredible. It is incredible. The gameplay is so good. The story is so good and well written and well voice acted. And obviously, you know, directed in a really well thought out, like there is clear direction to it, right? There's a vision. There's so much better ways to do it, and it is not being done that way with these other games. And it shows. The numbers, everything, it shows. I hope at least somebody got something out of this. Maybe the devs will learn. Maybe they'll change their ways. Who knows? Hopefully. Yeah, if they stop making money, if they continue to lose millions, they will learn. But anyway, that was a fun video to make, guys. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.